My personal creeper is like 5'6". It's named after my van, which is right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll take a picture before I leave.
Kind of creepy.
Splice it in.
Yeah, it's a little bit creepy. My van.
Where we at? There. Today's episode is a thank you of sorts. I appreciate all the support after the last video that I released, and I'm so happy that many of you reached out to celebrate with me. So what I did today is, you may remember the almond butter video that I made with Rob Machado a couple months ago. It's been the most popular video that I've released this year. So today's kind of like a bonus. What I did is I took more footage from that conversation that I had with Rob, and I took a board that I've been surfing a lot since joining Firewire last week. It's called the Creeper, and this episode is kind of like the sequel. When we spoke on camera, the first thing that I asked Rob was a question about the domed deck beneath your back foot on the Creeper. I thought it was really unique because it reminded me of the domed bottom of a Jeff McCoy board from like the 70s or the 80s.
Yeah, the Creeper's interesting, man. Like, that board actually started as a 7'6", and it was like, I made it mid-length because I'm not a longboarder and I don't know how to like walk up to the nose and stuff, so I just figured, oh, I'll ride a mid-length for little days out here at Cardiff and stuff. It worked great, and then I thought, wow, it'd be kind of neat. I like that. I just like the look of it. Like, I'm gonna make a 5'6". Like, let's just cut 2 feet out of the middle and just like turn it into a 5'6". What's neat about it is like the volume. When you look at volume in a lot of like mid-lengths, is they carry a lot of volume through the nose and through the tail. So that's kind of what like was brought into the small version. And that's kind of where it came from. Now, it's a challenge to notice on the deck of the tail on this board in my hands because I already put traction on it. But if you look at one in a surf shop, like this 5'4" that you see here, you can see that thickness in the tail and how it decreases rapidly towards the rails to create this kind of dome-looking shape on the deck. When you rub it with your hand, you get this distinction that it is doming in every single direction except forward. And that's because of the way that it shaves off foam from the deck towards the tail of the board as well, not just out towards the rails. You see, that original Creeper that Rob made at 7'6" was a hefty 3 inches thick, and that relative thickness has stayed in the smaller versions all the way down to 5'2". This one at 6 feet in length is uncommonly thick at 2.75 inches. But while so much volume stays in this board down center, bringing it to 37.3 liters, you would never guess all that volume is there when you put it under your arm for the first time. But then you get surprised, you know, you put the rail in your hand and you're like, oh yeah, it must be 33 probably, and you're like, 35? That doesn't feel like 35. My other board that's 35 feels like this. Hidden volume. This means that a surfboard has more volume in it than what it feels and looks like. Now, when you feel and look at a Creeper, it feels a little bit like a magic trick to me because he's hiding volume somewhere in the shape where you don't immediately notice it. So why might he be doing this? Look at me, you know, like I have to hide volume. I've never been like the strong power surfer. Yeah. Right? You know, I've always been the guy that had to use my physique to its highest ability, and it was all about technique. So basically, when you're a pro surfer like Michelle Perez or Taylor Knox or Poncho Sullivan, you can maybe get away with having a little bit fuller of a rail because your strength and higher than average weight can let you push that thing and grind it into the type of tight angles that professional surfing calls for, even though you have more float than average in your rail. But when you're Rob Machado and you weigh just 140 pounds, you've got to find ways to get the volume and float you need to surf into a shape that you can easily push around onto a rail using just finesse and technique, not strength and weight, as if your nickname was the Spartan. So in the Creeper, what this all means is that volume is hidden in the foil of the board from nose as the board moves all the way back to the tail, and you don't really notice it until you actually read the dimensions and see how thick it is. This thickness lets Rob get away with thinning out the rail extremely, so that it's very easy to
sink and push through turns on rail even if you don't have quads sculpted by a personal trainer. So why am I driving this point home so hard? Because it makes this shape kind of the cure for one of the most agonizing decisions that surfers make. The one that comes just after you decide on a board model and then get into the minutia, going back and forth between getting a 5.7 or a 5.9 or maybe a 6.0 or a 6.4. It's the cure for the stress of those decisions, because in a shape like this, you could accidentally go too long in the board and still feel a ton of sensitivity in the way that the board responds to the way that you shift your weight. For example, a 5.10 would probably be perfect for me, but I've had a lot of fun on a 6.0 in 2 to 3 foot waves. So maybe this is perfect too, even though it's too long. And this is very different than some other board models that require you to hit your dimensions dead perfect. For example, think of a Hypto Crypto, because I have never in my life heard anyone say that they went too short in a Hypto Crypto, but I hear endlessly from people who say that they went too long. That's because when a board has its wide point very forward and a much fuller rail, you can oversize that board trying to get the volume that you want, but then you end up in a situation where the bulk of that volume is in front of your front foot on the board, where it begins to impede the board's ability to be controlled instead of enhancing speed and control if you were to size it perfectly for yourself. When you look close at the outline on a creeper, you can see that the wide point is not very far forward of center, maybe only like an inch forward of center. And while the nose is very wide at around the 12-inch mark, it actually makes an effort to narrow very quickly after that. This means that even in longer sizes, this shape has comparably minimal swing weight, and the bulk of the foam business in this board remains directly beneath your feet down the center. And that's why Firewire is releasing this in extended sizes next year, all the way up to 7.6, because it can just work in multiple sizes for any single surfer. Rolled in the nose, single concave, very shallow single concave, becoming flat, double concave with V, concaves continuing on either side of the V, into a V. To wrap up, I think that this shape could work for everyone from beginner all the way to advanced surfers. An advanced surfer would probably ride it about as long as they are tall, down to 4 or 5 inches shorter than they are tall, while an intermediate surfer would ride it at about their height or even a foot or more longer. If you're at that very exciting stage where you are doing cutbacks for the first time on a longer mid-length board with much fuller rails, you may find this shape an exciting step to take, because it could let you feel what it's like to actually sink your rail and feel that hold and drive as you push through your turns. While Rob surfs this board in everything from 2-footers to this beach break barrel just miles from his house, like you saw earlier, I think that the lower rocker and elliptical plan shape in this outline probably would be most fun for average surfers in about 3 to 5 foot waves. If you're deciding between this shape and an almond butter, I think that this board probably is more suited for down the line surfing with big cutbacks, while the almond butter is more suited for going up and down in the pocket, probably surfed a bit more aggressively with the fins flying free and stuff like that. Now, the last video that I did with Rob had a bonus section, and this one is no different. In fact, I asked Rob a question that I was dying to ask him on camera, and I'm excited to share that response. But this video also gave me a unique opportunity to introduce everyone to some of the people in Rob's network, just some of the generally interesting folks that he rolls with, and that starts with Sig.
I am Sig Zane, and I am a surfer from Hilo.
Now, Sig Zane is actually a little bit more than just a surfer from Hilo. He's an internationally recognized artist whose work has appeared on everything from Converse shoes to Hawaiian Airlines airplanes like this one, and even collaborations with Rob on Hurley clothing. In fact, they collaborated on this special edition of the Creeper, showing a piece of art that Sig calls Ponoholo. So I asked Sig, what's it like to be around Rob while the two of you are collaborating?
I gotta admit, I love his hair. But no, I think that it is his soul that speaks. And, you know, just, again, being around with him, we all become that one zenful persona. I don't know if words can describe him. He's just a beautiful soul, a beautiful old soul. And I love that.
Now, I'm not one of these like mystical energy aura believing kind of people, but yeah, being around Rob, you just kind of feel good. Now, when I look at the Punaholo design, it actually reminded me of stars and constellations, so I was really excited to find out from Sig's son and collaborator Kuhau that it actually draws inspiration from the way that Polynesians used to navigate using stars in the sky when they would travel from island to island. So I asked Kuhau, why did you choose this piece for the creeper and what was your process?
Simply put, like, surfers are one of the best travelers in the world. Like, they want to travel, they travel all over the place, and they get really good at traveling. And so Punaholo is the idea of travel well. Hawaiians being great mariners from Tahiti, navigating their way over to Hawaii. When this opportunity came up, I was like, oh, surfers and travel and traveling well, mariners, navigation.
So to close out, I will give you Rob's answer to the question that I was dying to ask him. Since I've been doing Shred Show, I've felt pressure from people to rank boards or rate boards or say that this board's good or that board's bad or criticize the design of some surfboards. And that's just never really sat right to me. So I asked Rob, have you ever surfed a board and been like, this is a horrible board? Like, does that happen to you? Is there such a thing as a bad surfboard, or is it totally subjective?
Yeah.
And one guy's favorite board is another guy's least favorite, and there's no such thing as a bad board?
I'd like to lay the blame on the person more than the board. Like, initially, especially, I'd like to do that. You know, like, I always think, like, because I've had days, honestly, I go out and ride a board and, like, have a great session. This happened to me the other day. Had a great session on a board. I thought, wow, this board feels really good. And I took it out the next day and I was like, what? This now it feels weird. It doesn't feel right. It's terrible. Same, didn't touch it. Same fin, same everything. And then you're like, well, that has to be human error. Like, you know, you think about it. You wake up some days and you're like, oh, I feel good. I feel loose. I feel, you know, some days you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm a little tight. My hip, you know?
My body in, yeah.
Right? So it's like, you got to factor into that, you know, that you got to take that into consideration for sure. I mean, like, I trip out when guys go out and ride a board and catch like 3 waves and come in like, that's a piece of crap. You're like, well, tomorrow you might ride it. It could be the best board of your life. So I always kind of took that approach to my boards. You know, some days your body just isn't feeling like it wants to ride that board. Maybe you should be riding a different board that's easier to ride, or you know what I mean? It's like, I think every board has a home.
Good morning and welcome to my kitchen. This is just a quick reminder, use the link below to sign up for my email list because that will keep you up to date on everything that I produce moving forward that does not get uploaded onto Shred Show's YouTube channel. Of course, I'll keep putting stuff out on this YouTube channel about a variety of things, but I'll also be creating a lot of stuff at Firewire that will get released on different parts of the internet. So use the link below and you'll hear about all that and much more from me soon.